Right. Just walk behind you. I better do it myself as well. Turn your phones off or put them onto silent. We'll start off membership of the committee, which is a bit thin on the ground today, and it's space at last 10 minutes we seem to have lost one person. Yes. Yeah. So we have Councillor Pattison, Councillor Walker, Councillor Pinnock, myself, no Conservatives. I don't know if there's any. No. Right. And we've got a search party out for Councillor Kane. Minutes of the previous meeting, can we agree them as a true record? Indeed. Thank you. Interests and lobbying. I'll start off with Councillor Pattison.
None, Chair.
None, Chair. None, Chair. And myself, none. It is a public meeting, done on webcast, so no shouting or swearing. Number 5, any deputations or petitions?
None, Chair.
Thank you.
I've got an appeal, Chair, if you want to talk about appeal.
Yeah. Just before we move on to item 6, which is site visits, we've got quite a few appeals that David will run through with us.
Thank you, Chair. The first 2 appeals were summarised at the last planning committee, so we'll not go into those, but I shall mention the Washpit Mills appeal, which is page 31.
Yeah.
The appeal was by Prospect Estates against planning condition 22 that was attached to decision taken at Strategic Committee on the 20th of December 2017 to grant planning permission at Washpit Mills, Chappards Lane, Home Firth. This was for part demolition of an existing mill building and creation of 49 dwellings, conversion of listed building to form private gym, reuse of existing mill buildings and alterations to form workshop, car storage and ancillary facilities, including a cafe, shop, office space and formation of car parking areas. Condition 22 control the hours of use of the cafe and shop to customers and deliveries. The Council stated within the committee report that the cafe and shop would be open on a Sunday, but this was not reflected within the conditions on the decision notice. The Council did not oppose the appeal and did not contest it, and agreed that Sunday opening between the hours of 9:30 till 4:30 p.m. with no deliveries on Sunday was the correct restriction. The appeal was allowed. Thank you, Chair.
Item 6, 7 and 8, site visits. 12. Yeah?
Administrative error, so we have to accept that we didn't pick that minute point up. We shared the conditions with the developer before they go out. We exchanged a draft list. They didn't pick that up either. So we did invite them to submit a planning application simply to amend that condition and regularise this situation, because locally, this committee had accepted that type of hours. Members locally were comfortable with that. Officers were obviously comfortable with that. But the applicant chose to put an appeal in instead. So, yes, it's our administrative error, but there was a quicker way of dealing with it. Nonetheless, they went through the appeal process. We didn't contest the appeal because of this scenario.
With respect, that sounds a bit, and I don't, and this is not, well, it is a bit of a case, because it seems disingenuous to say, well, really, we passed it on to the developer, and they've not said anything. Why should they? Why should they have said something?
I suppose just the simple, it's an operational condition for hours of use of a third-party operator. Whether they then shared that condition with that operator, I don't know. I wouldn't want to speculate on that. We should have put it on in our draft. That was our error. But there was a quicker and easier way to remedy this than an appeal. But we can't force people to make a planning application, hence why we didn't contest it. So hands up.
Are things in place to stop this happening again?
Yes, we checked. there is a check and balance process on drafting conditions from case officers to managers, and then they are shared, as I say, with developers. That's good practice, but we have to accept that we should have picked this up first time in the drafting.
2 points to the process of being done. The other point I wanted to make is that at least 2 of these appeal decisions have quite extensive schedules of conditions. Now, there has been one decision that was made a couple of years ago where there were no conditions, and Matthias probably knows about this in relation to the management of the site, where it's caused a lot of trouble. And I just want to be sure, again, it's a bit of an administrative thing, because we will have refused the application to start with, so therefore there won't have been any conditions attached to it. And I want to try and avoid falling between the stools of the inspector on the one hand and the planning authority on the other, and neither of us sort out conditions where an appeal is allowed, that you get a full range of conditions, including wheel washing and things like that, because it's been the cause of a lot of complaints on this particular site. But as I say, I noticed that 2 of these have got quite an extensive list of conditions, and can't we do that every time?
Quick comment on that, Chair. But yes, thank you, Councillor. Conditions are put on by the planning inspector. We recommend a list of suggested conditions, even if we are defending the refusal at appeal. It's standard practice to put forward a suggested list. The planning inspector will then decide whether they think that is an acceptable condition for the appeal, should they allow it. In terms of the monitoring, we are very much aware that we need to be very closely monitoring major sites for planning conditions. We have a major site monitoring process. We're strengthening our compliance team with staff. We have our strategy in place now, and planning conditions and construction activity are a high priority for our service. So we will endeavour to make sure that we deliver on all the conditions and the Section 106 obligations as well.
Move on to planning applications. We'll start off at page 35, and this is the Slipper Lane, Murfield one, where we did have a site visit this morning. Bill.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Bill Toppin. I'm case officer for this, and as Chair has said, you did do a site visit this morning. It's your second visit, and we stopped just about here on Leeds Road and looked down towards the site. Bit of background: Murfield 25. It's a 12.3 hectare site with frontages onto Leeds Road, Slipper Lane at this point, Taylor Hill Road, and backs onto Sunnybank Road. The 2 parcels of land split by Taylor Hill Road. There's an extant permission on here, which was originally granted in 2015, and there was a variation that came before committee last year. Now that permission is a hybrid permission, which is an outline for industrial employment on this piece of land here, and a full permission for residential on this piece of land here for 166 units. That permission, the entire permission, was subject to a Section 106 agreement, and those details of what the 106 sought and the triggers and so on are listed in your report. Since that permission, there's been a reserved matters application approved, and you saw for yourself work has commenced on the industrial site here, so there's a industrial unit being constructed there, and obviously work on the preparation of the rest of the site has started. So this is an extant permission that has commenced. This application is a variation of permission 2 relating specifically to the residential part of the site. The full residential approval is for 166 units. The application, the variation is a replan of a large number of units, moving the same house types around, and so on. Yeah. The net result will be a reduction in the number of units from 166 to 160. Exactly the same access road network is proposed, exactly the same disposition of public open space, planting buffers and buffer zone and landscaping is proposed as well. The footprint, the overarching footprint of the 160 is exactly the same as 166. As you can see for yourself, this is what is proposed now, and this is what is already approved and can be implemented. It's a very, very minor changes there. It's very difficult to almost spot the differences. So that is the extent of what is applied for here today. As it is a variation of condition of the overarching approval, we need to we need to deliver a deed of variation on the original section 106, which ensures that the contributions roll through to this scheme as well. So our recommendation is to delegate back to officers to secure the signing of a section 106. The details are in your report. Just a couple of clarifications. Financial contributions, one should be financial contributions towards off-site highway safety and junction improvements. Yeah, those 4 sites listed, that they're already as defined in the 106. And then on part 2, the £8,000 for the residential, that's my mistake there. It should be £2,000 for 5 years, so it's £10,000 for the residential travel plan monitoring. And obviously reimpose all the necessary conditions as before. The main ones that affect this scheme are the housing ones, are to do with amenity, and you see these dots here, they indicate houses where there's a need for those attenuation measures. So it's a matter of making sure that that condition reflects the new plots and new parking arrangements for those houses. That's it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In the context of today, could members bear in mind that there is nearly £6 million of Section 106 money unspent in Kirklees, according to officers? So I'd like firstly that members give consideration and thought to in the future establishing a dedicated Section 106 officer like Barnsley have done. With the money, as we see in this report already, where we talk about funding a travel plan coordinator, money from Section 106 could go to ensuring that resource is properly used to coordinate, monitor and ensure delivery, because we have a situation in Murfield where there's nearly £100,000 may not be collected because the developer now claims they're in financial straits when the money should have been collected at the start. Looking at this report, Chair, so that's one thing I'd like to set at the context, that we don't want to be losing money from Kirklees. I'd like now to question the recommendations on this report, and if members look at the recommendations. Recommendation 1, financial contribution towards junction improvements. That is in contradiction to the agreement which is already signed, page 10 of the Section 106 agreement, which, and there are 4 items that have just been reflected. These are lumped together in this, and by the way, Chair, Robert Town spelt incorrectly on the report. They're lumped together for junction improvements. Now I want an assurance that this is, can be done in line with the Section 106 which you signed, because if you approve today and it's for junction improvements, what happens to the agreements and the assurance to residents of the provision of traffic calming measures on Church Lane, Murfield? What happens to the assurance and agreements that shared pedestrian and cycling lanes on Leeds Road would be done, because this is just a junction improvement, and so on? Those 4 could be turned around. And the phasing of the works on Leeds Road, I would question. Why are we saying that this is phased when the residential works and things start, when for 6 months this year the developers are putting in place a traffic regulation order to do their highway works? Why isn't it phased to cause least disruption while the developers are already on site? Similarly, item 3, recommendation 3, the financial contribution of £970,000 towards education. Again, I would draw members towards the Section 106 agreement. Condition 2 says the developer contributes towards infrastructure, 2 schools, Old Bank and Murfield Free Grammar, and the improvement of public open space and provision of affordable housing. The recommendation here makes no mention of that And I don't want that element to be missed from the colleagues as they're doing it. We need to make sure that there is conformity. Also, Chair, if we look at the condition 4 of the section 106, interesting what Mr Topping has just said, prior to occupation of residential unit, the developer shall submit for written approval marketing programme to attract end users to occupy the employment land. What we've heard from Mr Topping is the developer is already marketing that site without the council's written approval as required. What's the point of putting a condition in if it's not been adhered to, Chair? So, can I have an assurance that what will be agreed today is what is in the Section 106 agreement, that road safety measures for Robertstown and Murfield are not being missed off as this, a clarification on where nearly £1 million is going to be attributed. Much as I welcome it in schools, I'm sure colleagues on the Planning Committee would also say that we should be putting it into affordable housing, seeing as that was agreed. And why the phasing of works is not being done to minimise disruption. What's the point of the developer reinstating the A62 and its footway if shortly after there's going to be works from this, which are phased when the houses start to get occupied? If we had a Section 106 office, I'm sure all this could have been adequately monitored, and other items, such as £100,000 from a Lower Hopton development towards education, wouldn't have been missed.
Right, thank you, Chair. Just a point of clarity. The summary in your report here about what the contributions are, it's just for information for this report. The 106, the terms of the 106 as written, and as Councillor Bull has referred to, and he's had a copy sent to him this morning, are completely unaltered. Yeah, so nothing will be missed out, and there's nothing, with respect, there's nothing inaccurate in what the list is here. In terms of the, marketing, obviously the whole idea of this scheme originally was that the employment site would need to come along, and there was doubt whether it would come along. You saw for yourself this morning, a development on the employment site has already commenced. Yeah, so that marketing exercise, the idea is not to approve a marketing exercise, but it's to actually make sure that they do one, so that actually some employment is delivered on that site, and employment is being delivered on the site. So I'm struggling as to what the problem with that is with respect. Thank you.
I've got to make a couple of comments. I think it's a bit rich of Councillor Bolt to be talking about 106s when he didn't want any input on the little site in Murfield anyway, so I'm not going to listen to him as far as preaching about 106s and the value of 106s. The other thing really is I can't understand why it's here anyway. What's the total difference in the amount of the 106s, Mr. Topping, if you can let me know that? And if you look at paragraph 3.3, all these decisions were made anyway. So I honestly cannot understand why this has had to come back here. I really don't. And the only other thing I would say is that we make these decisions. It's going to be delegated back to officers. It shouldn't have actually been here, shouldn't this application? Thank you.
No, it's not hypocritical, Paul.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I mean, the extent of the changes that is envisaged are, as I explained, there's only 6 less houses, and there's no change to the 106 contributions at all the timing. It doesn't impact on that at all. Obviously, why it's brought in the past, it has been agreed that with ward members and so on, given the Murfield 25's controversy, that we would bring it back to members for scrutiny. So that's, I think, it's as it were, courtesy to the ward members.
Well, let's go to vote. Yeah. Those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please show. Item 11, page 45. This is the
two applications at Bar Street, if you remember, this morning. What David's going to do is roll them into one, but we'll vote on both issues separately. David.
Thank you, Chair. So, items 11 and 12 on the agenda relate to two plan applications by Myers Group that consolidates their operations. Myers Group operations currently consist of skip hire, timber and builders merchants, concrete batching plant and warehousing in a predominantly industrial and commercial area along the Leeds Road corridor, you can see there. There are pockets of residential properties along that corridor and in proximity to the application site. That application is, just bear with me a second, Chair. This is the correct planning application site, apologies. So the second slide will show the ownership from the Myers Group of the wider area. There's the plan application site 1. There is Bar Street and the Leeds Road corridor. So Myers headquarters is down here in the south with offices. The application site is to the east of the group of buildings. And this first application seeks full planning permission to change the use from a builder's yard and warehousing to A1 retail, erection of warehouse, car parking, loading area and hard landscaping. The site is located within a priority employment area in the local plan and seeks to protect sites from non-employment uses to prevent the permanent loss of employment generating development opportunities. This application involves the relocation of the timber merchants from Canal Street, which is in the southern area off the plan there, and building merchants from, this is currently located on the plan application site 2 further to the north. This will be located into a single unit. This will connect to the existing workshop on the southeastern boundary. Now there where the cursor is, that's the existing workshop building, and this is the new building that will have a gable end to the access road and residential properties to the east. There's the access from Bar Street. Part of the proposal is to have a one-way system for vehicles that will utilise this development, and that is centred around a hard landscaping display. The facility will include a retail element, and this is normal for building and timber merchants, which currently have a trade counter. Officers recommend that conditions will control the products that are sold from the merchants, and these will be Myers Group and DIY and large bulky goods only. The majority of the internal facility will be for storage, and there will be some cutting machinery that is already in existence. Currently the site is accessed from Red Doyle's Lane to the north, but obviously access also exists from Bar Street. The applicant's long-term plans are to separate the industrial type operations and deliveries into the north of the site from Red Doyle's Lane, and customer visits from the southern part from Bar Street. The proposed building is 21 metres by 48 metres and 7 metres in height. The existing building will be reclad in metal profile cladding so that it will fit in better with the new unit. In terms of residential amenity, properties are located to the south-east. They are 26 metres from the application site. The pollution control officers at the council advise that given the commercial operations in the area, these proposals would not adversely affect the noise climate. Conditions recommended restrict hours of use to deliveries and dispatches and activities between the hours of 6 AM to 6 PM, with none on Sundays, but that does include Saturdays. Now, in terms of plan application, here's just one or two photographs. There's the existing workshop building that is to be reclad. It's a view from close to the second application site. There's the existing to be reclad. This steel fabricator building will be demolished and the warehouse unit will be erected in this area. That's the existing building layout. There's the proposed layout. The timber cutting machinery is on furthest away from the residential properties. There's the elevations of the building. Of note is the southern elevation. The height of the roof is approximately 2 metres above the existing. This is the existing shed. There's no windows or openings within that southern elevation closest to the residential properties. Now moving on to application 2. This is further to the north on the Myers site. The site is 5,000 square metres, comprises surface yard, several open storage bays and racking in connection with building merchants and storage and distribution of building supplies. This operation will be relocated to planning application site 1, which is down on this area here, which we've just seen. This proposal will relocate the skip hire business that is also accessed currently from Bar Street in this area, with a waste transfer station that will be relocated into the application site within a new unit that will be for materials recycling facility, an MRF plant. It will be located against the western boundary in that area there. There's vegetation on the back and the Huddersfield Broad Canal beyond that. This area will still be utilised for vehicle turning and some storage. From a planning allocation perspective, this is a minerals infrastructure safeguarded area, but from officers' perspective it doesn't conflict with the safeguarded area, as in the main minerals operator is to the north and the infrastructure could be removed if necessary. Thank you, Chair.
Through you, Chair, Steve Sampson, Highways and Development Management. In terms of both proposals, removing the HGV traffic from Bar Street is favourable onto Red Doors Lane. In terms of application 1, which will be providing 16 customer car parking spaces and circulation area, that's acceptable from a Highways Development Management point of view. I'd just like to clarify the traffic generation, the current and the forecast, which is on page 62, paragraph 10.23. The existing traffic generation on Bar Street, it suggested it's saying it's around 108 heavy goods vehicles per day. It's actually it should read 80 skip vehicles per day and 14 Arctic stroke tippers per week. And the forecast movements should actually read, it's not 160, it will be 120 movements per day, with around 20 Arctic stroke tipper type vehicles per week. So the traffic generations have been overcooked slightly. Thank you, Chair.
Can you put the first line on? The first application. Can I just ask you, Steve, why then alterations are in the update?
Through you, Chair, I just did a recount this morning, and when I've looked at both reports, I've realised there's been an error on the traffic generations. Yeah.
No, the original plot drawing for the first application. This access into the bottom, what is the traffic that's likely to be going in and out of there? The traffic movements.
In terms of numbers, we haven't got we haven't got the information in terms of projected customer movements. Well, the HGV movements associated with the existing operation will be moved from the access. It will just be light vehicles and vans.
So it's only light vehicles?
Yeah, it's.
Can I? Well, obviously there's a junction there fairly close to that. Is that correct? I apologise because I wasn't on the site visit this morning. I would have liked to be there, but I couldn't make it. So obviously this would be better to be seen on site. So all I'm saying is that's like commercial, and why don't we ask for any possible traffic movements?
Well, I believe that the initial assessment of removing the HGV traffic on the face of it looked favourable.
So it will turn out better than what it is at the present moment. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It does occur to me that although it has been said that the commercial vehicle movements will be moved to the Red Dolls Lane entrance, is there any way of stopping commercial vehicles from coming in this way, like putting some sort of barrier between the two sites, so that there is genuinely no conflict? Because otherwise, it's all very well saying all of this. But we need some way of being able to make sure that happens.
Through you, Chair. I mean, we can put a condition on for a formal internal management layout to be provided, and we can check that off and make sure it's enforceable and it manages the site adequately. There will be a certain amount of it. It's quite a large. Sorry, through you, Chair. It's quite a large site, and there'll be quite a lot of internal movements in terms of HGVs and such.
Yes, through you, Chair. I do appreciate that, but I mean, there should be some way of ensuring that conflict between large vehicles, some of which we saw on site and indeed are very large, and domestic sized vehicles is eliminated preferably, so that they can't get out or in this entrance.
Through you, Chair. We can put a robust condition on that for that internal layout to be managed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I think, as Steve says, the whole thing is going to be, in terms of vehicle movements and everything, is going to be better, because the one thing that is better about this whole scheme, of course, is that they're moving the waste separation site plus all the lorries coming into that away from this street altogether to come into the top end, and all that activity that goes on around that will be coming in at the top, and there will be no interest for them, the waste trucks or whatever you like to call them, coming into Bar Street to go all the way through the site when they can just come through the top. But I mean, the whole plan is to make better use of their existing sites. There are, of course, other, I mean, whilst Myers, have got the timber store there, I'm not sure whether some of that's going to move into this new area, but there are other operators and businesses down that street anyway, so it will still be relatively industrial area, but it would be good to see that waste separation site moved as far as possible from the houses that are on the front there.
Thanks, Chair. And I'm going back to what we said originally about the figures. If them figures have been calculated to ensure that they're not commercial vehicles that's going into there, and they're only private vehicles, I think we should try to restrict that, and I think Councillor Pinnock is exactly right. We regulise the fact through condition that is only for smaller private vehicles. It does alter, obviously, people's minds when if they know it's conditional, because sometimes if you leave it open, people just say, well, look, just go down that side, and in ordinary circumstances it wouldn't be, but there might be circumstances where actually you would actually get a HGV going in there or whatever. So if we can regulise that through condition, I'm quite happy to support this application. I can move it, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm happy to second this application as well. Completely agree that we do need to ensure that the potential traffic benefits from these changes do actually happen and they're properly monitored. I think in other ways, the look of the site should be improved by some of the new construction and the cladding of the existing building. I also think that by allowing this, we are supporting improvement, better, more efficient operation of an existing successful business. And we should be looking to support businesses within Kirklees where we can.
Yeah, totally agree with that, Rob. Working smarter, making better use of the land, because it's quite considerable when you drive around it in a bus, how big it is. So it's item 11, it's being moved by Councillor Kane, seconded by Councillor Walker. Those in favour, please show. Thank you. 5-0. Next, agenda item 12, which is the same site, which is page 55. David's done a composite speech towards it, so can we have a mover and a seconder for? Thank you. Those in favour, please show. Thank you. That one's passed. Next, when I find it, page 67. And this is the Grangemore, where we paid a site visit to as well this morning. And it's David is going to impersonate Glenn Wakefield.
Thank you, Chair. The site in front of you is 1.4 hectares in size, Liley Lane running south to north, Kirkeaton in this area, Grangemore down in the southern area. The gradients fall from west to east, so it's significantly higher up near Liley Lane. This is a former colliery that closed in 1947. The access proposed from Liley Lane is the actual field entrance into the site.
This shows the land ownership from the application. This site is within the green belt, where obviously development is strictly controlled through the national policy and the MPPF. Now, as we said on the bus, we had some photographs to show you of the actual site. This shows the despoiled land. The variation in the profile of the site, obviously previously developed and has regenerated to some extent. That might be a bit clearer. Okay, so the pylons are located to the north of the site. The next one, this one's taken closer to Lila Lane. This is the proposed access into the site with the void there in the distance and woodland behind. This is the existing field access and the proposed vehicular access. And a view from Lila Lane over the wider landscape. The applicants have provided obviously contours for the site and gradients that are finished, and the green line is the profile of the land and the site after the 90,000 tonnes of waste had been filled in and the quarry void filled in. This is a plan showing the public rights of way. There is an existing public rights of way down the southern side of the field adjacent to the vehicular access, and that continues on towards the woodland. The other public right of way is opposite the vehicular access on the opposite side of the road into the quarry, and that runs down the field to the application site and then takes a dog leg and crosses the vehicular access proposed into the application site. So the proposal consists of filling the hollow with imported inert material with 90,000 tonnes that is estimated would take approximately 2 years to fill. In dealing with the principle of development, the site is, as we've said, in the green belt, where development is strictly controlled. And the question to ask from a policy perspective is whether the development constitutes inappropriate development, and if it does, are there very special circumstances that would enable the development to be granted. The applicants claim that the following benefits will derive from the scheme, which is firstly a smoother profile will allow cultivation using modern agricultural machinery. There will be an improvement to safety for workers and users of the public rights of way. There's an increase in productivity of land, restoration of the degraded land. And whilst officers would agree that these benefits can be weighed in a given some favourable weight, it doesn't outweigh the harm to the green belt that would be caused by stockpiling of soils, material that detracts from the openness, a significant number of heavy vehicle movements, and creation of vehicular access and parking. The highways information that was submitted is set out, and the officer's consideration has been set out at 8.1 of the report, where there is no objection to the vehicle movements, providing that it would be restricted to 10 in and 10 out per day by a condition. That's all for now, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, do you want me to speak myself first or for the Community Association? Whichever you want. What's not the Community Association?
Right. This application raises concerns for residents over the intrusion into the Greenbelt with the potential for further development in the future. Another major concern is the impact on the road of increased numbers of HGV wagons accessing the proposed site. From the application, this appears likely to be from Grangemore roundabout, south along Lively Lane to the site. Site traffic will therefore come through Grangemore village and past the entrance to the village school within the existing 30-mile-an-hour limit. Lively Lane is well known locally to be a difficult and often dangerous road to travel due to speeding vehicles which often take risks to overtake slower moving vehicles, particularly on the straight stretch of road outside the entrance to Temple Quarry and the proposed access to the new development. The speed limit for this road is 40 miles per hour, but the experience of regular users suggests that few drivers limit their speed to this figure, with many travelling at much higher speeds, as the transport statement confirms. Following the traffic survey by the applicant, this shows average actual traffic speeds of around 50 miles per hour in each direction. The comments that's the Community Association, have received from residents suggest that the information contained in this transport statement bears little or no resemblance to actual traffic conditions. Actual traffic conditions experienced by regular users of this road. And the 4 road traffic accidents mentioned are a misleading statistic. The Community Association understand that a road traffic accident is only recorded if there is need for hospital treatment for any parties involved. By way of example, the Community Association has already recorded 4 road traffic incidents this year, with the road being closed for a number of hours on one occasion. The increased number of vehicles passing through the village is of concern, as a 30-mile-an-hour limit in the village with a steep bend outside the primary school entrance. The governors of the school have already been in contact with the association about their concerns over existing traffic levels at this point. The Community Association is concerned that the additional vehicle flow as a result of this application will increase the risk on the road through the village for both drivers and pedestrians, as well as potentially increasing the air pollution with additional discharge from the 20-ton wagons as they travel through the village past the school gates. They request that the committee includes these factors when considering this application. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For myself. Are we ready? Right, something I don't usually say at these meetings, but I have no hesitation in urging committee to endorse the officer's recommendation for refusal of the application. The local topography is of an undulating landscape, and the application would lead to an irrevocable change to the nature of the local greenbelt. But I want to move to traffic. And I disagree with the report, which I think is over-optimistic, on the severity of traffic problems which would follow approval of this plan. I use the B6118, which is Lively Lane at this point, very regularly between Bradley and Grangemore. I know that at daily peak times traffic is very heavy. This is designated as a high accident route. The application is vague and confused on traffic generation, but does speak of peak periods during which there would be 80 20-ton lorry loads of material brought to the site during a 10-hour day. This would also mean, of course, 80 HGV movements away from the site. That's 160 20-ton wagon movements per day, which is 1 lorry every 3 or 4 minutes on a 10-hour day, if evenly spaced. In practice, lorries would not be evenly spaced, and bunching would occur. There is no space on the B618 for HGVs to be queued up safely, and severe congestion will be inevitable. Such a peak activity period may last days or months, and there's no indication of the extent of any single period, nor of the number of times peak activity may be reached. The application envisages a large proportion of HGV traffic approaching from the direction of Wakefield Road. This means heavy diesel engine tipper lorries passing very close to Grangemore Primary School, at a point where the road enters a sharp bend on an incline. HGVs in both directions would have to negotiate the bend in low gear, which is known to greatly increase harmful exhaust emissions and cause greater traffic noise outside the school. I fear for the health consequences for children, quite apart from the broader issues of decreased air quality, noise pollution and traffic congestion, which would impact upon all members of the Grangemore community. Parts of Flockton and Upper Hopton are covered by RTOs controlling HGV movements, but approval of the application would encourage unscrupulous drivers to contravene the orders. Section 4.1 of the report, Enforcement History, does not increase confidence that the applicant would conform to any planning conditions. The transport statement paints an overly optimistic picture of the capacity of the B618 and the local network to cope with the increased HGV traffic. At the Bradley end we have severe congestion at Cooper Bridge, and there are extensive plans to remodel the junction of the B618 with the A62 Leeds Road. Whilst there is little indication of the likely time of these works, it is clear this junction is already heavily stressed, and major engineering works will add to this. At the Grangemore end, the A642 Wakefield Road itself is very busy at daily peaks, but should be able to cope with extra traffic access. However, the A637 Barnsley Road, which passes through Flockton, is narrow in places and heavily congested. Nearby Paul Lane, which gives access to Emley from Wakefield Road, is also a narrow road. I respectfully urge that the committee accepts and endorses the officer report regarding Green Belt, but also finds a third ground for refusal, that the application is unsustainable on traffic grounds because of issues around air quality, noise pollution and increased road congestion. Quite frankly, Mr. Chairman, I find it horrendous that we could have every 3 or 4 minutes a 20-ton wagon on this road. I'm really quite lost for words that such an application could come forward. I think it is absolutely unsustainable, and I do ask committee to find that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. And I hope colleagues have seen the submissions from Murfield Town Council about this. The bill has already highlighted several issues about the traffic conditions and the number of vehicles who currently flout existing TROs. When Murfield Town Council have asked Kirklees with regards to a traffic regulation order to restrict HGVs on roads other than the primary ones served by Murfield 25, we're told the police can't enforce traffic regulation orders and have difficulty. So issues like this where we're talking about conditions, I fully support what Bill said. I don't think you can look in isolation that this would not be the only generator of HGV trips. You have to look at the cumulative effect. And I hope that when you were on the visit today, you saw the situation. If you look just above the red line, there's a track comes out from your left, which is a quarry on Liley Lane. No doubt that's got a condition which states that vehicles should have the wheels washed before they enter the highway. As you looked at that today, on any given day, you'll find tracking of mud and rocks for great distances from that, which have been reported on several occasions to Kirklees, but still remain in place. So conditions, again, Chair, the conditions are okay in theory, but in practice. Bill says the road has a high incidence. We had situations where vehicles were leaving this road and flying off into fields. Trying to get HGVs passing on a narrow and winding road, I think, is unsustainable, as Bill had said. So I hope that officers will support the refusal of this, unless something comes forward which is more manageable and where there are more enforcement and confidence in enforcement of conditions. Thank you.
This application is to complete the restoration of a derelict and dangerous former colliery site for use for agriculture. The applicant is a genuine farmer desperately seeking to secure more land to make his business more viable at a time when your local plan means much agricultural land is being lost for development or other uses. The first half of this site was restored some 2 to 3 years ago without planning permission. Misbelief that he didn't need planning consent before I was representing him. The Council's enforcement section looked at this and agreed that the restoration has been completed to a high standard and does not harm the character of the area. I was engaged to decide how to handle the second phase, when it was tempting simply to go ahead and do it without consent. I possibly now wrongly advised them they should apply for planning consent, work with council officers to agree conditions so that we can control how the development was restored. It was quite amazing to find the recommendation of refusal. All your professional officers, your highways, your ecology, your drainage, your environmental health, even your landscape people have raised no objection. I quote in paragraph 10.27 of your report, officers consider that the resulting landform would not be out of keeping with the wider landscape and would not appear a discordant feature. And yet, you've quoted that as a very reason for refusal. I believe the evaluation of your officers have basically got this one wrong. They've over-exaggerated the harm to the openness of the greenbelt and greatly under-exaggerated and given not enough weight to the special circumstances attached to this development. Restoring land for agriculture is not an inappropriate development in the greenbelt. Isn't that what the greenbelt is for? If, as your officers suggest, it's the tipping element, which means that you need a special justification, there is certainly a very strong case to approve it based on your national and local planning policies, and I believe your officers have given insufficient weight to these benefits. So where is the harm? The first part of the restoration was completed completely satisfactorily. Why shouldn't the second part? How is a gently sloping field tapered into the landscape a discordant feature? It will not destroy a landscape feature of any merit. There is no ecological value in that site, and in fact the proposal is to increase the ecological interest by allowing the woodland to extend. It will not prevent any views from walkers across the site. You'll be able to look across the site to the woodland beyond and the landscape. It doesn't block any views. The discussion about traffic is really out of all proportions. We're happy to restrict to 10 vehicles per day. The main reason for this is because the sources of the fill, the topsoil, comes from many small sources. We haven't got one big source to put any more. We're more than happy to keep to the 10 today. What are the benefits or special circumstances? Well, firstly, restoring land... Yes, sorry, I'll be very quick, sorry. Restoring land is a sustainable development which the MPFA supports. Bringing back land into effective use is also something the MPPF supports, ignored in your report. Removing a dangerous area. You didn't manage to walk down onto that site. It is dangerous. I am wrapping up, sorry. Also, it gives not enough weight to the economic benefits of the scheme.
Thank you, Chair. I read what it says about the reasons for doing this, and to a large extent I have a great deal of sympathy with that. And I hear what's said about ensuring that the agricultural use of this area can be carried on in a sustainable and safe manner. What I think is not acceptable is the extent to which the import of topsoil and subsoil is going on here. We were reminded on site of another application, I forget when it was, 2-3 years ago, a site just outside my ward as it happened, which involved, I think, just moving soil on the site. There might have been some import, but it certainly wasn't on the scale of this. We refused it, and it was refused on appeal. So looking at this, taking that as a precedent, if you like, I know one shouldn't press this precedent business too far, but that small amount of soil movement was refused on appeal. This seems to me to be quite a large amount of soil movement, and I, to be perfectly honest, think we should do the same with this, and particularly when you add to it the testimony that Councillor Armour has given us of the effect on local roads, of the volume of heavy traffic that's required, however you do it, even 10 vehicles a day, if you restrict it like that, it's going to go on for longer. I think that, but it's not that. I think there is a precedent that we can point to. I'm not quite sure how you would word it, but I think I would like to move the officer's recommendation.
Thanks, Chair. There's a couple of things on this, and I have to agree a lot with what Councillor Pinnock just said, and one of them in particular. My concern would be on this as to how we're going to control the infill and what's going to be infilled with. Certainly, we've seen many a site where they're coming in and supposedly topsoil, it comes in with all sorts of builders' rubble and all sorts of things that's made up. However, I will come back on one point that was said by the last speaker, and that's really about the fact that he himself advised the applicant to put in an application. Two wrongs, I have to say, if you don't ever make a right. And he should have put an application in for the previous one, and the fact that you put in an application is all to your credit, but in actual fact this is what the role of this committee is all about, is to ensure that it is good development and development that is sustainable. Councillor Armour, I have to say, and both the comments that he made from the community group and his own personal comments touched upon many things that I think we all thought originally about this application, and that is about the sustainability and the traffic and and in actual fact the security of people around that area. And I think we need to be a little bit wary when the applicant then there's a projection of so many traffic movements, and then the applicant says, well, we can restrict it to 10. I'm sorry, if it's an application goes through, unless you condition it, you can't. And in actual fact, when you condition it, they don't take any notice of the conditions anyway. So I think we need to be extremely careful. This is a rural area, and I think I know the application, what you were talking about, Councillor Pinnock, and we did refuse one here not so long ago. And we said it's nature, and nature evolves, and this has been evolved by some sort of excavation and whatever. It doesn't mean it has to be filled in. It can be, nature's changed by all sorts of different things, and I think it's important that we try to sustain some of that as well as just trying to flatten it out for particular usage. So I'm quite happy to second the officer's recommendation to refuse this application, Chair. Thank you.
I think one thing though to mention also is this morning, if you remember, there was a vehicle came out of the quarry and we followed it down Steep Hill, down through Upton, and it turned off just about where Roger Rabbit used to have his pub, Flower Pot. I'm not right keen on wagons that size going down that road also at all. This has been, yeah.
If it's at all possible to strengthen this refusal through the traffic movements, can we actually have a look at
that? When we initially looked at the application and when they came in and they said over a 2-year period, 45 loads per week, and that would complete the infill for 90,000 tonnes of fill material. We had concerns then on the campaigns, if you like, where you had a higher volume of traffic, and we felt that the even profile of 10 vehicles per day, 10 in and 10 out, would be difficult to demonstrate it's a material difference to the traffic flows already along Liley Lane. And that's our view. I mean, it would be difficult. We feel it would be difficult to defend. However, your recommendation.
Carol.
Just a very brief point, and I am not minded to approve it, or I am minded to go along with the officer's recommendations just on the basis of Greenbelt. Our Greenbelt is going to be under increasing pressure over the next 15 years or so, and I think where we can protect it, then we should. I'm also minded to, or I remember a site on the road between Lepton and Grangemore many years ago now, 20 or more years ago, where it was flattened, all the hedges ripped out just for the to improve its use for agriculture. It is still an agricultural site, but it was a real shame to see all those features go. So I am, in this particular case, wanting to make sure that the Greenbelt is preserved.
I'm going to say I don't see any special circumstance at all on this application. So it's been, the officer's recommendation has been moved by Councillor Pinnock, seconded by Councillor Kane. Those in favour, please show. 5-0. Thank you very much, and that's the end of today's committee. Yeah.
Very difficult, I think, to condition and enforce to meet the test of the condition to say 10 in and 10 out. So I don't think we can use the planning condition. So it isn't. The calculations that put forward means that 10 is supposed to be the number that we pay now. I'm saying that I personally don't think that would be the case. And that's the advice, isn't it? That you are going to have fluctuations on, but if you average it across a period, you know, it's out of 10 and 10 out.
Yeah. I'll just step back a moment. The projected spikes, what we're saying is we don't want those, so we want it conditioned to not an average. It's 10 in, 10 out. If you want 20 in, no. It's got to be 10 in, 10 out per day, not an average. So it can't be over a month that they all come at once. So, but from what I can gather, the committee are unhappy with that arrangement. That you're saying that 10 in, 10 out a day will be have a material impact on Liley Lane. If that's what you're saying, that's what you need to put into the reason for refusal.
We're also saying that we think that would be very difficult for us, and then we'll end up with peaks and troughs.
through you, Chair, my understanding in terms of waste transfer and infill and such, it's got to be very well documented. In terms of the types of material and such, there's got to be complete logs on site. So that's a way that our minerals officer would marshal that, if you like.
I'm just trying to work out whether, committee obviously can make their decisions if that's what they think in terms of highway safety and impact on the network. However, our highway officer hasn't advised us to put that in for a reason for refusal in this case, for the reasons that he obviously thinks that it wouldn't be able to have sufficient evidence to substantiate it.
I think the difficulty you've got is it's either a reason it's an impact on the material consideration. Is it mitigatable by a planning condition? Our advice, I don't think, is no. I don't think we could reasonably enforce that condition proactively, and you would have breaches occurring. Therefore, is it in itself a reason to refuse the application on its own grounds, because it has to stand on its own grounds? I think what we're trying to say to you is there is some movement coming and going, but we don't think that if it was at that 10 in 10 out a day, if it was, that would be significant to warrant a reason for refusal on its own right. That's our advice. If you want to put it in, we will do our best to defend that. I just have to advise you that I think we've got two stronger reasons, and I'm not convinced that has the same strength as appeal.
We've got two justifiable and evident reasons for refusal.
Yes. The point I was trying to make, and I probably didn't make it very well, was that I think the import of material is excessive. And if you want to remodel the surface, then you should consider remodelling it with what's there. And in fact, I think the first reason for refusal includes all of that, and it will include the import of an excessive amount of material for the first reason for refusal. So I'm quite happy to go with what's there. Yes.
I'm going to say we have actually voted on it as it is.
You have two representations.
Yeah.
That's part of our role as well. If we can do something to assist them, then that's fair. I think we're taking on that officer advice that it's covered anyway, so we've done our duty.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, we have voted on it. We voted on the two reasons for refusals, but obviously there's some lingering doubt in members' minds, and this is a transparent and open process, and you're just explaining how you were thinking, and we've had an open conversation about it.
Right, that's it. Thank you.